Ginny Metheral, and I'm here today to talk to you about a really scary, true story that happened to me and concerns a werewolf. I hope it's not too scary for you. I mean, I was bloody terrified, I can tell you that. But if you like this video, make sure you subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell so I can make lots more videos for you in the future. So this is one of several true stories that I have from my past which are concerning ghosts, or in this case werewolves. And if you want to hear any more, why don't you let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, without any more ado, let's get straight into this video. The first part of this story happened when I was 10 years old. And age 10, my parents, in their infinite wisdom, decided to send me off to boarding school. And I was sent away from Herefordshire and Worcestershire, where I grew up, down to the south of England to a school near London. Here's a picture of it so you can see. It looks a bit like a prison. I thought it was. It was run by a lot of nuns who I weren't particularly used to, or didn't particularly like, actually. I mean, to be fair, there were some really nice nuns there, but on the whole, I could take them and leave them, quite frankly. And it was a bit of a shock for me, to be fair. You know, age 10, never been away from my parents, suddenly dumped in this ghastly place filled with girls, and bearing in mind I only have brothers in my family, they were a complete anathema to me. However, we were in the first form, myself and my other form mates, and we slept in something called JD, or Junior Dormitory. Now I need to explain Junior Dormitory for you because it was quite hideous and the most barren and bleak place anyone would ever hope to put a small 10-year-old. It was a long room with windows set very high into the side, so you couldn't see out of them, but they let in the light from the top. And down each side of this long room, it had cubicles, and each cubicle was partitioned off, and then the front of it was a curtain to give you some modesty rather than privacy. There was no privacy in that place at all. Now each cubicle had a bed and a chest of drawers beside you, a small one, of which you were allowed to put 5 of your own favourite personal items on the top. No more than 5, otherwise they got confiscated by the nun, Sister Peter, who used to terrorise us in that dormitory. And the floor of the dormitory was made of that really hard, reformed stone, so it looked a bit like sort of crystalline and had glittery floors, but it was extremely cold. And I was in the middle of winter when I was staying in this dormitory, and needless to say, my loving parents had forgotten to pack me any slippers. So I just remember being quite cold, actually, in this dormitory. It was pretty hideous, and it was pretty bleak, but that was where I was dumped, as far as I could see, by my parents aged 10. Now, this dormitory had a lot of rumours associated with it, and these rumours are all about, as you guessed, werewolves. Now, the story was that a werewolf would come in and grab a girl from the bed in the dormitory and take her out to the bathroom, which was next door, and gobble her up. And if anyone then went back in, there would be not a sign of the girl to be seen, and all the blood would have been licked and slurped up by the said werewolf. Now, these stories were utterly, utterly terrifying. You know, to any 10-year-old, they'd be terrifying to anyone. It was a most haunted place. It had that terrible feeling to it, you know, that feeling of I just don't like this and it's haunted. The story starts one night when we'd all gone to sleep, and to go to sleep you draw your curtain across the front of your cubicle, get into your bed, and it was lights out, you go to sleep, shut up. You weren't allowed to talk, get up, go to the loo, or do anything. In fact, you were not allowed to move from that bed until you were woken at whatever time that we were awoken at. So one night I woke up, and looking over at the clock on my bedside table, I saw it was 4 o'clock in the morning. And the reason why I'd woken up is because the door to the dormitory, which I slept opposite, was banging shut in the wind. And it was opening and banging and opening and banging. It was really annoying. And I remember lying in my bed, being quite comfortable, being quite, you know, happy, just thinking, I'm really comfortable, I can't be bothered to get up and go and shut that bloody door because it's opening and shutting and it's really annoying. And within a particularly heavy gust of wind, bang the door shut, and I thought, oh, thank gosh, it's not going to open, it's not going to open. And I was gradually, about a minute later, just drifting off to sleep when I heard the door open again. I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to get up. How boring, it's so boring. However, I heard it open, and then I heard something a bit weird. I heard the sound of clawed feet walking into the dormitory. You know how a dog will walk on a hard floor and you can hear that sort of click-clack of their claws. That's what I heard, but it was clawed feet and it came in like that. And I froze. I absolutely froze. Nowadays I have the fight or flight. I have the fight scenario and I go and beat everything up. But in that time I was a child, as most children do. They freeze under extreme fright. Anyway, so I heard this thing come in and then the door bang shut and then there was silence for a few seconds. I then heard what sounded like someone chomping their jaws and licking their lips, but really loud, like, you know when a dog licks its chops after it's eaten a meal and you can hear it. And that's what I heard. And then this thing started to walk with a limp on 2 feet up past my cubicle to the end of the cubicle and then come and walk back down again. And I could hear it. Bear in mind, I was frozen to the spot. As it had passed my cubicle curtain, I saw in the gap between the partition and the curtain, I saw the shadow. I mean, you can't see very much in that much of a gap, but I saw the shadow pass the curtain. And I cannot tell you how terrified I was. I was unbelievably so. When it got to the top of the dormitory and turned round and came back down again, I thought it's going to eat me. That's what I thought. It's going to eat me. So I thought, well, I'm not going to let it eat me, so what do I do? And eventually I managed to unstiffen my throat and I screamed. Whereupon I heard it run with a limp to the door, open the door, go out, close the door quietly behind it. Anyway, at this point, all hell breaks loose. Literally, the dormitory goes up in arms. I then have the indignity of being slapped by several nuns, dragged outside, thrown into a small corridor, and generally beaten up for being so dreadful. Needless to say, I was utterly terrified. I cannot tell you the fear that it would endure me. I wouldn't go back into that room. I wouldn't be in JD by myself. And I certainly wouldn't sleep there. And I started to scream at night from sheer terror. Anyway, the nuns took very, very unkindly to this and banished me to a small single bedroom just above the dormitory at the top of what was known as the chicken stairs, which was utterly terrifying in itself, next door to the bathroom where the said werewolf was supposed to, take the girls to eat them. This got so bad that I was eventually expelled from the school. My parents got very cross, came down and said, "You can't expel her, we're paying you all this money to send her there, you can't expel her." And the school said, "Okay, well, she can come back when she's a bit older because, she's obviously just too young, she's too stupid and she's mad and she needs to go to Borstal." Well, that was their first thing. And after my parents beat them up a bit, they said, "Okay, well, she can come back." So I left the school for 3 or 4 years and I came back, I think, so I must have been 13, 14 when I came back. And it was pretty awful, actually, because everyone thought I was that mad girl who saw werewolves and screamed all night, which doesn't go down very well when you're trying to make friends with new people. Anyway, so life carried on, and I stayed at the school to do my A-levels, and one day during my A-levels, or just before my A-levels, I was busy revising in the sixth form library. Now, the sixth form library was miles away from the sixth form wing where we slept. And so at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I decided to pack up my books. I'm carrying all my books in front of me, like a sort of, as you do at 2 o'clock in the morning, decided to go back to bed and passing through the bathroom where the werewolves had eaten all the girls. So as I walked past it, I opened the doors. There was lots of fire doors, every 20 feet, as there are in all institutions. You can't go down a corridor by yourself. You have to open and shut a lot of doors. And I opened the last door into the corridor where the bathroom door came out of. As soon as I opened it, I heard growling. Just now, there's no dogs in this school. This is it's a Catholic convent. There's no dogs. Actually, that's a lie. The headmistress had a dog, but she'd lived in a different building, so unlikely to be her dog in the bathroom at 2 o'clock in the morning in this part of the school. Unlikely, I would have said. Anyway, so I was a bit surprised, actually, at this point, more than anything else. And so I turned around and said, "Hello, is anyone there? Is anyone, who's that?" Whereupon the growling then got really loud. I heard this walking down the bathroom. And I thought, okay, I'm 18 years old. When I first heard this sort of noise. It had devastated my life. I had been through, it's very difficult to be told that you're mad when you're 10 years old and, come through that and live with those sort of slurs and then go back to the school where people automatically think you're mad. It was a hard time. So I thought, well, I'm 18. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, God, it's definitely a werewolf. I'm going to go and get proof. So I turned around and went back and got another route to go to sixth form wing. Now, my next door neighbour in the sixth form wing, in the rooms up in that corridor, was a girl called Lexi, and she happened to be awake. So I said to Lex, would you just come with me and just listen to, I think I've heard something, I don't know what it is, and I want you just to tell me whether I'm going mad or not. And she said, sure. Now, I very, very purposefully did not say what it was that I'd heard and what it was that we were going to listen to, because I didn't want to influence her. She was also quite a new girl at this point. Well, she'd been there for a year and a half, so she's not that new. But she hadn't experienced me, aged 10, screaming JD down. And so she did, and she might have heard possibly about it. But, 8 years later, it was a thin story amongst myself and my group, my peers. So she probably hadn't. I don't know, but, whatever. Anyway, so Lex goes in front of me and I say, it's in the bathroom, blah, 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 by JD at the bottom of the chicken stairs. And she walks through and we're going through the corridor, which is a long corridor, at the end of which is the bathroom. We get to the last door, opening and closing these wretched fire doors, and Lex just turns round and runs straight back past me. I think, that's a bit odd, so I then turn round and try and catch her up. I don't catch her up until we get to her room, where she turns round and her eyes, she's got these huge eyes and they're streaming with tears. And she's crying, and she said, I heard it. And I said, well, what did you heard? And she said, I heard a werewolf. Now, I hadn't mentioned this word, and I don't think she knew, but that's what she said to me. She said, it sounded like a dog, but it wasn't a dog, was it? I heard a werewolf. Anyway, so finally we left school. I remember crying the day that we left, and this friend of mine saying, what on earth are you crying? I was like, I'm so happy. I left school. Best day of my life. Still is, actually. And about 6 years later, I happened to be staying with the parents of my best friend, and my best friend was there, obviously, and her little sister happened to be there. Her little sister had been at the same school as us and had experienced all the same things that we'd experienced, and the beauty of the nuns. She had also started her career at the school sleeping in JD. And we were having lunch on the Saturday, and it was a nice Saturday, as it is, sitting around the kitchen table, eating spaghetti bolognese or whatever we were doing, drinking some wine. The conversation at lunch then got on to the subject of the supernatural, as it does, and my great friend, Sophie, turned around and said, well, of course, Ginny heard werewolves and saw werewolves, when she was in JD. I was like, no. And I brushed it off, as I had done for, the last 15 odd years, and just I'd come round to thinking I didn't see this, I didn't hear this, I had imagined the whole thing. I'd sort of worked myself up into that frame of mind, even though secretly I knew that I had. Anyway, Letty, the younger sister, who also had been at the school and had slept in JD, said, well, I used to hear this thing with a limp coming in and walking up and down, and you could hear its jaws chomping, and you could hear its claws clicking on the floor, and it was the most terrifying thing. And that is when I thought, well, I had that too and saw it. Now, is this a werewolf? At least I've got verification, finally. Anyway, I hope you like this video. If you do, I've got some other true stories that happened to me, true ghost stories. If you want to hear them, let me know in the comments below. And otherwise, make sure you subscribe and check out all my other videos. There's a playlist for you to binge on. See you in the next one.
Here is the magnificent Ginny Metheral, one of the few witches left in the wild. Subscribe to her channel and protect her future habitat.